So I was wondering, is it a build and peak system, or once you put the tent up, you basically you keep it?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, and it is more akin to good nutrition than it is to something like plyometrics, which you bring in at a certain time and and stop doing at other times. It's more akin to good nutrition. In other words, certainly the 6 weeks before a major event's the most important time, but if you can keep eating good nutrition the whole year, so is the better. And the same with the altitude. It does compound. It's one of the questions that I had when I made the first altitude tent, and believe me, it didn't look anything like this. It was plastic sheeting and duct tape over my bunk bed in my house I was renting in Pennsylvania, and there was equipment laying across the floor. There was ice chests. I wish I'd taken some pictures. But the first night that I slept in that thing, I knew that I would never again be doing my driving up the mountains at Pikes Peak, because the tent system in its crudest form was way better than the very best altitude training, going up the mountain technique. But one of the questions that I had was with the live high, train low. Studies had shown benefits, but they'd only been done for a month, because you can't get people to do these things, driving up and down mountains for more than a month. So the question was, well, after a month, if I go beyond there, are there more gains to be made? And the answer was most definitely yes. Red blood cells last about 100 days, and that's the cycle where they take to change over. And red blood cells that are formed whilst there's some altitude exposure have more enzymes attached to them. So if you can be in the have altitude exposure for 100 days, by that time all your red blood cells will be altitude type red blood cells. And that also kind of answers the question, well, when you come out of it, how long do the benefits last? Well, several weeks later, you've still got most of your red blood cells were formed during the altitude exposure, so you're still going to be getting some benefits.
Okay, now I noticed that this is actually pressurized. You got nitrogen in there.
Yeah, I can show you a little bit how this thing works, because when you drive up the mountain or you go on a plane, you notice your ears pop, and it's hyperbaric, the pressure changes. And in fact, before this, there was a pressure chamber where I'd shut myself in and suck the air out. It was like a vacuum chamber. I took one into the '96 Olympics with me, and that's really where I started thinking about the tent. We needed something more pleasant to use. It is billowing out here, but in fact, there's no pressure. Excuse me, we can undo the zipper, and there's only very slight pressure, so you can walk in and out. If this was an altitude, a hyperbaric chamber, we wouldn't be able to do this. You'd have to repressurize it. This is a hypoxic system, and what we've done here is actually change the composition of the air inside. So you can make altitude either by reducing the pressure or by reducing the content of the air that is oxygen. And at the moment, right now, we're breathing 21% oxygen. Inside the tent here, on this oxygen monitor, it's 16.1%. So the air unit, which you can hear chugging away back there, you probably can't hear chugging away because they're now so quiet, that's taking in regular room air, and it's physically separating out some of the oxygen molecules, and then it's taking what's left, the oxygen depleted air, and is pumping it into the tent. And so this tent will get down to about 13 or 14%. And that's the thing that is the same in the hypoxic tent and up a mountain is there's the same number of oxygen molecules per cubic meter, and it's about 30% less than we would have here at sea level.
What would happen if you lowered the pressure and upped the oxygen?
If you lower the pressure and increase the oxygen, that was pretty much what I was doing when I was breathing the oxygen when I was up at Colorado Springs. So I had the lower air pressure that you get up the mountains, 30% less pressure, but I increased the oxygen content from 21% to about 28%. And so then I was back to where I started. That was simulating sea level, and that was why I did that.
Charlie.